Yeah, I'm just here to flip on the switch and then everything
Bless,
looks up. So,
bless, bless, bless. Thank you.
yeah, of course. Do you need somebody running slides or are you
No, I got the clicker.
Okay,
Yeah. You can slide back here if you want. But, so I have that big picture flyover slide, giving year to date.
I'd
Or did you
actually
want
rather have
this one first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And then this, and then cash reserves, and then the budget to actual, and then I'm coming back to this first slide with a couple of things that I'm highlighting there.
Great.
Okay.
That's good. I support your decision to not create something new because I feel like that is it's really just circling back. So
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. Cool.
Good.
All right.
Where-
We'll give
is
it.
that at the beginning?
Yes,
We
we're
like
right
to
out the
get
gate.
that over
We're
with.
right out the gate. Yeah.
Good. Apparently. Yeah. I'm still waiting to hear back from a couple more people. And then I'll start reaching out to and I'll check with the staff and see how much they want to be involved with it. Because that if everybody's right. So okay. Yeah, but as far as I know, I mean, I'll probably check it out. We're all good for yeah. Okay. Anything you need from me? Just show up. Yeah. ready to read it if you need me to. Yeah. So I'm gonna check in with Adam and see what he wants to do. Hey, how's it going? What's your trip?
It was good. Really productive. I was there fall noon festival. So I got
Get away, go
yeah. Oh yeah, did you see
Yeah,
the
that was great.
post? Yeah. Bucket list got to
Yeah,
the
dude.
Great Wall.
That's huge.
Yeah, it was really cool. You can see like the Forbidden City.
Yeah.
I was in Shanghai and Guangzhou for most of the night.
Okay.
Got to go up there for a long weekend.
Awesome. That is really awesome.
It's understandable why it's one of the wonders of the world.
Yeah. Jesus. I mean, so when you're at the base of it, I mean, like, what's the height feeling about it? Like,
Well, I mean, you feel really high because it's on the ridge, at least where the section that I'm in, so it's running the ridge of like a mountain.
okay.
So it's just, I mean, that's as inspiring as anything, just
Right.
thinking of thousands of years ago, them
Yeah.
building this thing in this terrain, and then you look east and west, and it's just standing as far as the eye can see. And so it's just, yeah. I mean, the wall itself, for the most part, I mean, I don't know about the places where it's more flat areas.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, 50, 60 feet high. And then,
Is it pretty uniform, like structurally, or like does it look different? Like it's flat?
I mean, the section that I was in,
Deacons.
but I know it's built in different periods. Sure. It's like different stretches of it, so I'm guessing there are periods where maybe you can tell.
Oh yeah, John or Shannon.
Different materials.
Keep saying John.
Yeah. Deacons are current deacons. Nathan, Alyssa, and Dave. Other than the carpenter.
How about I go off the headset?
Should we get one of?
No.
Are you speaking the whole time, or are other people speaking?
I'm talking a lot, so.
What are you doing? Nothing.
I'm gonna run off my headset so that we can use this for Q
I'll
and
run
A.
it around.
But I'm gonna use this
You're
because
gonna
we'll
use
have
it
two
until-
speakers.
Oh.
Quite a bit. Okay. All right, I think we're going to get started. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this. There, that's better. Welcome. Thanks for, yep, this is casual, Adam. It's casual Monday. Oh, the bike, yes. I used to ride a bike. I don't so much these days. But I have a cool biking shirt. And also my wife instructed me, she's not here tonight because she's working, but she's like, you need to wear a hat because I missed my haircut appointment last month, and like my barber is not available for like another 7 weeks, so I'm just trying to make it to Thursday, but she's like, you got to wear a hat. She's like, it looks terrible, so sorry that I'm wearing a hat this evening. Obviously, I'm not used to being up here in the evenings, so welcome to our family meeting. Thanks for being here. You may notice there's some folks that are missing tonight, especially from our staff and the elder team. The sickness just continues to go around, so can be praying for them. Hit the Lepores pretty hard. It's continuing to hit the Miles house pretty hard, so be praying for them. And as Eric puts his mask back on over there. You're welcome. They did choose to stay home, so they are not here spreading germs. But yeah, be praying for them, and we'll miss their presence here tonight. Okay, the agenda for tonight is to cover a financial update, and Amanda's going to be up here in a second, helping with that. And then we will move on to talking about deacons and elders, some exciting developments that way. And then we will be talking about something else that I forgot about. I can't remember, something else that's in there. And then, no, actually, I think that's it. And then ministry, like just a general ministry update. And then some time for Q&R. And some prayer, and then we'll be on our way. So that's the plan for tonight. What are you making fun of me about? Oh, yes. Okay. That's all right. I have my Dr. Pepper. So, okay. So, Amanda, do you want to get us started here with get the fun stuff out of the way right at the beginning here. So, yeah.
Good evening. Okay, so, do this. So we're gonna start with just kind of big picture of where we're at this year. So take a look at the right-hand column. We'll walk down that column, and then we'll talk about some other stuff. But the just total, if we start at the top, it's all the general. So this is the stuff we budgeted for this year. That's just our normal annual kind of giving and expenses. So our income total $339. Our expenses so far this year, $358 almost. So we have spent more money than we've received by about almost $19,000. So that comes out of the reserves when we do that. And then if we continue down, looking at shelter and light, as you know, we were able to receive $124,000 this starting in December last year through the summer, and our expenses came out at $117. So that left about $6,800 that was given for the roof and the lighting that we, yeah, I can't remember how I said that, but yeah, we have about $6,800 more that we received than we needed. And so typically in a nonprofit, when you are raising money for something real specific like that, whatever money comes in, it has to be spent for whatever it was raised for. We did receive a number of contributions that said for shelter and light or for wherever makes most sense or wherever is needed. And so that money that came in was more than the $6,800. So we can consider that $6,800 as unrestricted, or we can make choices of where we want to use that. So that's good. And Adam will talk a little bit more about kind of what the thought is with that. So altogether at the bottom, you can see our income so far this year is $463,000, and our expenses with the general and the shelter and light is $475,000. So we're about $12,000 under as far as more expenses than the giving, which we want that to be even. We want to cover our expenses, but we are not discouraged about that. When we look at that in context of what we have done in the past, it still blows us away of what has been contributed this year. So one way to look at that is just comparing last January through August in 2023 to what we've done this year. And so even just up in the general fund area, we were about $87,000 more, received $87,000 more in contributions or giving than we did last year. And then the expenses were about $58,000 more this year. So that's the giving, on the giving side, that's just really exciting. And then if you go down all the way to the bottom, that's where it's really amazing, is just to see that what's been given is $463,000 versus $254. So $210,000 more this year was given by this community than last year for those same 8 months. So that's real big picture, and the rest of the slides are kind of gonna give some different views of that or show some more details of where we're at. So just on the giving side, we started this graph at the end of last year, just showing where we have been. So the black line is the average from the 3 years prior. So 2020 through 2024, the average of giving monthly on that. And then the blue bars are what we've given this year. So you can see that every month has been more this year than we had done on average the last few years. And then some months have greatly exceeded that. So you can see February, March, and July, we're all close to about $50,000 in giving. So we're just kind of tracking that, kind of interesting to see kind of what the giving trends are by month. And you can see, I know we've pointed this out before, but the graph goes up real high at the end because typically in December, that's a big giving month here. So and then just a little bit different way to look at this, January through August, and the blue is income and the black is expense. So just give you an idea of what month-to-month income is, which we just looked at, actually the month-to-month income, but the expenses you can see fairly standard other than the last couple of months, and we'll talk about kind of what some of those expenses have been. So all of this is still general income, general expenses, so not the shelter and light. And this is our cash reserves. We have, as an elder team, decided that it would be wise to have at least 4 months worth of expenses in reserves. And so that's something that's not a new benchmark for us, but this is just showing since 2020 where we've been with that. And the things that affect this graph, two things. One is what our cash balance is, and the other is what is the last 4 months of expense. And we just take that and just kind of, it's on a rolling number for that. So two things have happened this year to make it be where we have a little bit wider gap than we've had before. And the first is that the cash balance is down, and it's down by that 18,000 that we're where we've spent more than we've received. And then also the monthly expenses have gone up, which we anticipated this year in our budget, but that's where you're seeing that. So there's a gap of about 50, not quite 50,000 there between those two things. So that's something we will, I mean, ideally we would love to get that, back up to the 4 months. And then this slide we're going to camp out on a little bit, and Adam's going to join me for this one. But we wanted to show you, so far we've just been showing you what our income is, which is primarily the giving, compared to our current year expenses, which is really the big deal. We want to cover what we've spent, but we also want to be comparing that to what we budgeted, because that's, we've gone through a process to look at, what do we think we're going to spend, and that's an important, those are important numbers to us, especially as we're coming up on 2025 and not that long and going to be doing this process again. So January through August, total income, that 339, we've seen that number before in another slide, but the budget for that same period is 335. So you can see that our giving has been about 5,500 more than what we had budgeted. The event income a little bit below, and so about 3,500 is our where we're above the budget. On the expense side, we are about $29,000. We've spent more than what we budgeted, and that's been in all the categories. And so, Adam, do you want to come up? And
Do you want to explain yourself? Yeah, so a couple of aspects, I think, to this that are helpful to keep in mind at a broader level would be that we, I think the two overarching pieces before I get into some of the specifics on these would be, first, that we created a very conservative budget for 2024. Because we knew that we had some larger expenditures coming our way, and we were trying to not place too much pressure, I think, on the budget and on the expectations for the congregation. And that was before we had even really planned on Shelter and Light being an aspect of this year. And so so I would say it was us trying to really go, like, where can we narrow these things down? So that would be the first thing. This isn't like overblowing a really aggressive budget. This is us going over on a pretty conservative budget. And then the second aspect I would say is this is indicative of the growth that we're experiencing as a community. So I would continue to say, like, at an overarching level, not a financially irresponsible staff. And I think the elders would agree with that as well. In fact, all of our large expenditures still continue to come to the elder team for approval. And most of the time, I think Amanda could probably give some input on this, but they are just things where our elder team is like, this doesn't really seem like much of a discussion. Like, this is more of something we need to do.
I did want to say that, though, that anything that's over budget by very much, we hear about that. And so it's that the staff is very responsible in their expenses and are watching that very carefully.
Yeah. So I think those two factors are good things to keep in mind when talking about this. The payroll overages, which are a significant part of that, have to do almost entirely with the decision to bring Melanie onto full-time, which is a decision we made as a leadership team. She was doing part-time hours ahead of the sabbatical and really going, like, we feel like this would be really important. It was timing up with her availability and her second job going away, and we knew we had an opportunity to kind of swoop in and get more of Melanie. And also, having done all of our staff reviews at the beginning of the year. I could show you these in paper, but almost every single employee review listed as one of their highest needs more administrative support. And so just knowing like this is a not just a frivolous decision to bring on Melanie. We just need more of Melanie. Everybody would agree. Like we need more Mel. And so that number is pretty much entirely encapsulated in our decision to bring Melanie on full time. In regards to the building, mortgage, utilities, building, repair, maintenance, cleaning, decor, all of those things kind of fall underneath that. Those are the subheadings underneath building. We have had, as with an old building, it's difficult to project what's going to go wrong in the course of a year. So this doesn't include shelter and light, but we had an HVAC unit go out that pretty much services the front portion of the building, the offices. Like in the middle of the heat wave, that HVAC went out, and we had to do $4,500 worth of replacements there. We had some major repairs that needed to be done on our ancient elevator after a few people got stuck in it. And so this is the way it is. I did some repairs on my 2006 Toyota Camry today. That's what I spent time doing. And with these old things, you just don't know. And sometimes there's just seasons where it rolls in a little harder and faster than you thought it would. And so we're keeping an eye on that. And also, we're going to be taking into account these numbers when we're building out our 2025 budget, obviously, for maybe trying to have some more realistic numbers going forward, having that serve us. In terms of the ministry portion, that includes worship, Sunday, youth, children, women's, missions, events, pastoral leadership. This would just be the general growth of ministry in our community. And so this number really doesn't belong to one of those headings as much as it's spread out through all of those categories and just us needing more resource to do the ministry that we're doing, apprenticeship groups, a growing youth group, just a whole bunch of stuff that continues to move forward that way. And then the last expense, office administration, finance fees, insurance, telephone. Oh, I guess I missed in that ministry section as well some larger expenditures in terms of ongoing continuing education for staff, some decisions we've made to continue to pour into and develop staff there, and so some stuff going on there. In terms of admin, what's covered in that is office administration, financial fees, insurance, telephone, software, membership fees. A lot of this has to do, that $7,000, almost $8,000 number has to do with just the cost of things going up. So our printer costing like our printing costing $1,000 more than we expected this year. Every single one of our membership fees for everything that we have going up, and you know this at a personal level, probably of just seeing all of these things increase throughout the year. And so that's a big aspect of that. And then another thing to draw attention to there is credit card fees. So we have about $2,500, we're about $2,500 over in credit card fees than we thought we would be. Those are not us carrying a balance. Credit card fees is the processing fees for processing contributions that are given electronically. So we have talked about this before, but I'll bring it up again. We do pay a percentage on any giving that's done electronically. There are ways for you to give differently if you're interested in that. If you didn't know that not all of your contribution was going to the church, there are ways to do that so that specifically like setting up an online bill pay is the best way to do that, or an ACH deposit. Those ways we don't have to pay processing fees, or we pay a very small flat fee on those. With electronic debit or credit card, we pay a percentage of the actual amount that was given. So the larger the gift, the more processing fees we do. So why have we overshot that particular thing by $2,500? The answer was on the previous slide, right? Is that we had $125,000 more $210,000 more in giving this year up until this point, year over year from last year. So a little bit about that. We have talked about as an elder team, our overages for Shelter and Light, that $6,800 number, is definitely going to go towards covering. That feels in the spirit of the giving towards Shelter and Light to cover the credit card fees for processing those that extra giving. So a portion of that money will be put towards that. Yeah, I think that yeah, I realize it can feel like, is Adam just up here playing spin doctor or making excuses or whatever, but trying to be as honest as we can about these things and to not be too discouraged. I look at this and see this is a church that's experiencing a season of growth, and we're feeling it at a financial level, and that means a growth in giving, and it also means a growth in spending. You know, it wouldn't be right if the spending wasn't moving along with the giving, right? Because that's the point, is we want to fund ministry, not just sit on more money. So, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to go back just to one slide to, let's see, oops. Oh, it is this one. So if you look at this slide for the last 4 years prior to this one, expenses actually went down a little bit and came back to just even. So there was no real growth in expenses during those 4 years. So this isn't something just kind of like every year it just keeps getting more and more. This is a different year, and we've felt it in so many good ways.
Sorry, that's my text message. That just died? Let me see, the battery might have died. It totally died.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Benjamin.
so just wanted to kind of point that out, that this, the growth, the expansion of opportunities that we've
Let's,
had for people to connect in with the community.
Go to that microphone, just so that streaming people don't miss you. We'll let Alan get you turned back on. Should work.
Hello? Yes. Yeah.
Some good reverb on your voice, that's nice. Do you want to sing a song?
I can find this.
Money, 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 money.
Yeah, but there's just been a lot of opportunities that we've been able to create this year for our community, of ways to connect, ways to grow spiritually together, and so it's exciting to see that growth, but also it does reflect in the numbers we're looking at.
Thanks, Amanda. Thank you, Amanda, for all of your work and help. Oh, yeah, I was going to say, this is just ending on a good note. That this isn't anything new that Amanda hasn't already said. I was just going to point out, she said it verbally, but to point it out at least visually, like, these are some things to be really, like, grateful for. And 85,000 more in giving just in our general. That's just in our general budget. That's not including Shelter and Light. Year over year, from last year to this year, $85,000 more given by our community. That's amazing. That's worth celebrating. And then a total of 210 when you add in Shelter and Light. So, yeah, there's a lot to be grateful for our community and your faithfulness, and those that aren't here, those that are watching from home. I think when our team looks at these numbers, it's not discouragement at all. It's just a lot of encouragement over what's taken place this last year. So thanks. Okay, if you have financial questions, jot them down or make a mental note of them, because we can come back to any of this if you have questions, but we're going to just do all of our questions at the end tonight. So hang on to those for a few more minutes. We're going to move on to talking about deacons and elders. So a couple of updates this way. Some changes coming on our deacon team. And the first thing is just at an overarching level in regards to deacons and elders, all of the changes that are coming our way on these teams are a part of just really healthy and natural change in our teams. That this isn't coming from any frustration or unhealth on these teams, but actually a move by us to try and be faithful to what we both asked for from our leadership teams, in terms of we've had a bad habit, I think, in the past of asking people to serve on both of these teams, deacons and elders, and then just kind of like handcuff them to the role and never let them leave. And that's and we just know that's not a healthy way of going about this. We need rhythms of work and of rest. There's health in bringing in new people in multiplying, in sharing the load. And so all of the changes that are coming our way on these teams are just really good, healthy changes that are happening because we're trying to actually stay true to letting people leave and take a break, and then also taking that as an opportunity to bring some new folks on. So the first announcement that way is that we have 2 deacons who are moving off. And so those 2 deacons are Tim and Jody Carper. And so we want to take a minute and say thank you to you guys. So could you come on up here? And Jenny, you can come on up here too. Tim and Jody have served really faithfully as our care deacons for 3-ish years now. 7, it feels like 7. 3-ish years now. Our care deacons do a lot. It's really aimed at, rather than looking outside of like an outreach element of care, there's so many needs that our community has in terms of caring for each other when people are in need. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why people find themselves in need. As I mentioned on Sunday, we have lots of babies in our community, and it could be making meals and visiting families with new babies. It could be making house calls with, I'm kind of taking what Jenny's supposed to be talking about, but anyway. Tim and Jody have served so faithfully in this space, and so we want to express our gratitude tonight. And I want to let Jenny's the one who's really been the primary liaison with them from a staff level, so I want to let her talk about her experience with Tim and Jody, and for us to express our gratitude for them tonight. Oh yeah, and those things too.
That's good. Thanks, husband. Hi. Yes, I think one of my favorite things about our deacon teams is just how the care that they offer to our community really takes on the DNA of the people that are in those. Yeah, I cannot look at you. I'm going to cry. And I don't know why. You're not going anywhere, but still. How it takes on the DNA of the people that are in that role serving. And with Tim and Jody, our care team really just took on the DNA of like connective tissue. That's who they were for our community. Is that me? No, that's you. Okay, good. Okay. I always think all electronic problems are me, so you could say yes, and I would believe you. When they came into this role, we were just like, can you care for our community? And the beautiful part of this specific team is that they took that and they created a system, because they are both intentionally caring, the first ones to show up, and they are administrative. And right from the outset, Jody said, I won't serve without Tim. And Tim said, I won't serve without Jody. And every meeting that we had together, they showed up to together, and Jody was taking the notes, and Tim was brainstorming, or all of our communication was the 3 of us together, and I would hear them say to each other at different times, like, she's my best friend, he's my best friend. Like, it was just the care that they offered to each other and to our staff was the care that they poured out in our community. And and so they created systems. They created 4 different teams. They had a make a meal team. They had and I had to ask them for all, they had really clever little names. They had a drive and deliver, where they would pick up people and bring them to wherever they needed to go. We have individuals in our community who don't drive for various reasons. And Tim and Jody were on the front lines of making sure that they could be at events. They had Care and Connect that sometimes wrote letters, that sometimes showed up at visits, that whatever care was needed with physical presence, Tim and Jody were there facilitating that. And they had Renew and Restore. So we have single parents in our community, and we have elderly individuals in our community, all of whom needed just some renewal to things that were in their house, or Tim and Jody were the connective tissue that allowed that care to happen in our community. So they're the first ones to show up. They're the first ones to pour out. They're the first ones to tell our staff, hey, can we also liaison this with our prayer team? Can we also liaison this with our home communities? Can we tie in the children's ministry here? It's just deeply beautiful what they bring to our community, and we are so, so thankful. And they're not going anywhere. They have said deliberately, as we're passing this off to the next facilitators, we're going to be part of it. And they're still going to be there on the front lines doing the things. So thank you. Thank you for loving our community so well. Thank you for loving each other so well, and for just, being such an integral part of loving our community. So you get a little date night. And could you guys just give them one more round of applause for? I know, they'll run together, and I won't run with my husband. It's true. Okay, but because I have to tell this story now because he outed me. The one time I ran with my husband was when we were first married, and he had just gotten out of the Marines, and I am huffing it down the side, and he's running backwards going, "Go, Sights, go, go, go." And I'm like, no, I'm done. So that's why I will not run with my amazing husband.
Fresh out of the Marines. It's good. Am I on? I am on. Okay. Yes, thank you, Tim and Jody. And would you express your gratitude to them in person too? That'd mean a lot. And even if there's things that you received as a part of their care, or were, just privy of, you were aware of, or got to see or observe, to be able to thank them for those things, it's really meaningful. It's something to bring people onto. We didn't have a deacon team when Tim and Jody came on. We had absolutely nothing there, and so it's really they're trailblazers for that team, and the culture that they've set there, I know will really continue, and the people who are coming behind them are going to be able to have a really good sense of how to move forward, which is, I know, a lot of what they were trying to do. They were thinking beyond themselves about caring for our community long term. So in light of that, I do want to talk about some deacon nominations that we have this evening, some additions to our deacon team. And some of how this works, a little bit of how this works, is that we have nominations for both our deacon teams and our elder teams. Those processes are slightly different. So nominations for our deacon team come from our deacon team themselves. So they're self-nominating in that sense. As these aren't, as we've mentioned in the past, places of great, these aren't titles of great power, as any deacon will tell you. Deacons aren't doing a whole lot of decision-making within our community. They are boots on the ground, serving, caring, helping, assisting, and doing a lot of really meaningful work in that way. And because of that, we feel pretty comfortable about the idea of that team being kind of a part of choosing their successors, essentially, being able to look and know they know their roles really well, and their team knows each other pretty well as well. That's a lot of wells. And so we've given them the opportunity to be able to basically bring forth names that our elder team would be able to approve, our pastoral team would be able to approve as well. And so they went through that process right as I was leaving for sabbatical, of kind of beginning to pull together names for that, and began the process of trying to fill some of those spaces. Some of our deacons really love the work that they're doing. Not that Tim and Jody didn't, but they're very much in a space of wanting to continue, and so we have Dave and Alyssa and Nathan are continuing in their roles as deacons. But as you know, we need to be on the lookout for filling a space for Tim and Jody, and so a couple of nominations that way. So the names I'm bringing before you tonight these are nominations, so we have asked them if they would consider, and all of these people have said that they would love to serve in these roles, but they're not officially deacons yet because we have a process for that. So now at this point, as we bring these names to you to be able to go and look at the biblical qualifications for a deacon, which I'm not going to be talking about here tonight, but I'm happy to talk about with you and point you towards kind of where those are. But we kind of open up to our community an opportunity for feedback on those things. So if you know a reason why these people maybe aren't qualified to be deacons in our community, to be a part of that conversation in a respectful way with our pastoral staff or our elder team. But it's also an opportunity for our community to affirm these people as well, and to say, no, this is a good pick. This is a really good idea that we're going this direction. So in terms of our care team, 2 folks we really felt like would be a good fit here, and Tim and Jody felt like would be a good fit here, are Darcy Blankenship, who is here. Darcy, you want to raise your hand? That's Darcy. And Robin Harper, who you got to hear from a couple Sundays ago talking about reading initiatives, and her husband Brad is an elder at the moment. And so really love the idea of a team of folks being able to do this, because this one's a heavy lift for this particular area of being deacons, and so for them to be able to do that. Darcy's been a part of our community since the very beginning and knows our community really well, and Robin, since the day she arrived here, probably 5.5, 6 years ago, she jumped in right away and very much cares about those things. Hi, buddy. You can go up to the office. Your dinner's up there, okay? All right. Single dadding this Natalie with Emily working tonight. So yeah, putting their names in front of you. A couple more names as well. And this is what's really exciting, because you notice Tim and Jody are the only ones moving off. We have more deacons coming on, which means our deacon team is getting bigger. Jerry Kemmer is going to come on as a financial deacon, which is amazing. Rick and Jerry are founders of Strong Harvest, which is a nonprofit that does really beautiful work. I encourage you get to actually talk to Tim and Jody. You guys are on their board, right? Yeah. So you could talk to Tim and Jody about that nonprofit if you're interested. But Jerry has done a lot of the financial work for that nonprofit for many years, and she's kind of moved out of that. And so we saw that as an opportunity to strike and get Jerry's help. But as you know, like, this has been a space that's been unfilled for quite a while, since Jessica Ellison moved on from this space, and it's a high need space. And it's something Amanda, as an elder, has been filling in, and basically as both an elder and a deacon of finance. And we really love the idea of freeing up Amanda to elder in our community, because that's what we asked her to do. And so letting Jerry do a lot of the work that you've actually seen Amanda doing over the last couple of years, of helping liaison with the staff and our bookkeepers and the elder team. And again, these aren't decision-making positions as much as they are just helping us move things forward, helping us communicate clearly, helping us clean up our budget, helping us craft a new budget for the year ahead. So, and partnering with the staff on all of those things. Do you need me?
Is it the burger or the chicken strips?
When you signed up for a family meeting, you didn't know it was going to be like a real family meeting. He can have whatever he wants. I got the chicken strips for him, though, so if he wants the burger, he can fight his sister over it. Unbelievable. That was worth interrupting over, is my favorite part. Like this really serious up from the balcony. I said the chicken strips. Okay, so Jerry, coming on that way. Rick and Jerry have been traveling quite a bit this last month, but they're going to be back in town in October, and so encourage you. And also just encourage you to get to know these people and ask questions too about them if you don't know them. And then the last pair would be Jesse and Keely Smith that we're putting forward as, yay! You guys can wave your hands too, yes. Putting forward as hospitality deacons. And this is a deacon position that when we created the deacon team, we were like, we need hospitality deacons. And so for whatever it is now, 3.5 years, we've had this vacancy, but a hope and a desire to have some folks here. And Melanie's been our hospitality deacon, really, for those last 3 years. And it's been a big part. So, you know, as you can see, as staff and elders are kind of doing these things, as we bring more people and create more ownership, it naturally helps flow downstream to places that help free up staff to do different things as well. And so hospitality is a very Sunday-heavy role as it's managing our teams that do hospitality-related stuff. So our security team, our hosting team, our greeting team, our coffee teams. That's a big part of hospitality deacons. But Jesse and Keely bring a lot of experience, having both worked in spaces where they have done a lot of scheduling and done a lot of like efficiency workflow stuff in hospitality, in the hospitality industry. And so they bring a lot of their skills that way, but also their heart for creating space of warmth and community. And so we're really excited about them agreeing to that too. So, so this is really exciting. This takes our deacon team to 8 if we bring all these people together, and that's really exciting for the future as this continues to come together. So the other thing that I'd mention in connection, yes?
8 positions or 8 people?
8 people. 2 of those are shared positions. So the hospitality is shared and the care is shared. Alyssa's all alone on prayer, and Jerry would be all alone on finances, and Nathan would be all alone on technology-related stuff. So.
Math is hard on Monday night.
Yeah. So sorry about that. Yeah. 6, 7, 8. Yeah. 8 people. Yeah. What else was I about? Something I was going to say there. And then in relation, also the last thing in relation to deacons is that as we are looking at new elders coming on, one of the structural things that we're looking at is one of our elders being completely dedicated to essentially chairing our deacon team. And so that would be a person that we wouldn't be loading with other responsibilities along the way. It'd be understood that their aspect of being an elder is chairing our deacon team and being that primary liaison, and that's a role that I've been doing and not doing that great of a job at, quite frankly, because it's one of those things that's difficult. So the idea of having somebody who's really aimed at tying those 2 teams together and keeping everything moving smoothly is a big part of how we kind of are envisioning the future. So that's the deacon update. If you do have feedback, we're asking for it by October 1st at the latest. We'd really love it in the next week. Feels reasonable, as these people are pretty well known in our community. So to be on the lookout for that, because we'd love to move forward with commissioning them, and we look to do that in a Sunday morning setting. And so hoping to do that in mid to early October-ish. So if you can get us any feedback by then, if you have it, that would be great. And then in regards to elder nominations, so the way in which this is different is that we have an elder nomination team that is not our elders. We don't feel like it's a good practice to have our elder team choosing the next elders, at least completely on their own. So they're a part of the process, and it's important for them to be a part of the process, but they're not the origination of the nominations. So we have a group made up of our deacons and a few other members of our congregation that we invite into that space for again, more kind of checks and balances in that, to come together and pull together a list of names that are people that group feels like are names worth looking at for being elders. And then our elders come and take that list and continue to pare down and make decisions on who to ask. So where we're at in that process, I don't have any announcements to make this way. Where we're at in that process, though, is pretty far down the road. So we're beginning to speak to individuals about the potential for joining this team. So, and we hope to be making announcements that way by the end of the year in terms of some new folks coming on our team. And then also that making way for some folks to be able to make use of those terms and go, this is a good time for me to take a break, because we feel like that's important and important option to have. And if they feel like there's not enough help, it becomes a really difficult thing to back out of. If you're like, oh, if I leave, it leaves this gaping hole, So we feel like that's really important. So yeah, those nominations actually took place while I was on sabbatical. I returned from that. We picked up the conversation again and began to do the next step in that. So look for more information coming your way by the end of the year, definitely by the next family meeting. So, okay, I think that's all that I have by way of deacons and elders. And now just a couple of things around some ministry updates. So, and if staff, you guys want to chime in on any of this stuff, you're welcome to as well. I don't have any accompanying slides for this, but just some general ramblings around what's going on at Union Chapel and things to be aware of. So, as you know, we're in a series on Exodus, and that series is going to be carried all the way up through Advent, up to Advent. We'll take a break in the Advent season, those 4 weeks, as well as that last Sunday off from gathering. And then when we begin gathering again in January, we'll pick up another, I think it's 4 or 5 weeks to finish off the Exodus series. So we're going to be in Exodus for a while, but it should be really exciting. And there's a full preaching team lineup there, so be hearing from Jenny and from Chris and from Ben again in the course of that, and trying to be more intentional about sharing some of the preaching load. One, it's great to be able to hear from multiple voices. It's wonderful to get to hear their perspective on God's word and let them share with our community. And then it also is freeing me up for some areas that I've been wanting to kind of grow into instead of preaching 48 weeks a year or something ridiculous. So I'm excited about them kind of jumping in on that too. And then we also have kind of our annual kind of preaching team forecasting. So our team will escape for a little retreat in October to do and forecast kind of where we're headed for series for the year, and look to update you on that and at our December family meeting, so you kind of have a sense of oh, that's kind of where we're going for 2025. So a few other things going on. You heard on Sunday we're going to have a baptism service on the 27th, and have some. That's really come about. We've never really done a fall baptism. Usually we do that. That rhythm is kind of more of a yearly rhythm for us in and around Easter. Another sign of just general growth, I think, for our community. It's a wonderful aspect of it, of going, hey, we have some baptisms to do in the fall, not just in the spring. So some people who are interested in that, we're offering baptism classes on the 13th and the 20th for preparing for that, or asking questions about that. And we have some adults and students as well signed up for those spaces. You, by the way, if you know anybody who's interested in doing that, or have a student that's interested in that, you can sign up on the Church Center app. And this is my just plug to this crew as well, to make use of that Church Center app and help other people make use of it, as it is it's our communication hub. And also, if you're not on the directory or need to clean up any of your information on the directory, that's super helpful, as we're just getting a sense of who's here. And so even if you're new as well and want to get signed up for the directory, you can contact Melanie and get access to that. We generally just ask that people are willing to put their own information, at least some information, on the directory, and then we give you access to the rest of the church directory as well. So those are kind of some all-church things happening. A couple of things I want to just both reflect on and talk about that are going on in the life of our church. This is our first family meeting since Ben and team took a group of what your total number was, 85 people to camp, somewhere in there, with adults included. About 60 students, which was a massive bump in growth for our middle school. So say that again. Were you guys? Oh, okay. It was Jesse. I thought you were mumbling numbers. So yeah, a massive bump in how many kids are interested in going to camp, and filled all the spots really quickly. And then Ben had to scramble to find ways to accommodate more kids, and they got really creative to make as many spaces as possible. And probably going to have to get back to the drawing board a little bit on what camp looks like next year as well, for trying to prepare for that many students. That has meant a really strong start for our youth as well in the fall season, is kind of averaging 45, 50 plus for midweek gatherings. So, which is crazy, you guys. When Ben came on, we had 5 students for midweek gatherings. And then they were all Bergs. Yeah. That's about right. And so, I'm talking about this just as a way of like when we're talking about growth, we're talking about real things here. And it's not like just to like talk numbers as a way of like conflating egos or anything like that, but just to go, this is so darn encouraging. This is such a massive area of growth in our community. There are families that are coming on Sunday mornings because their students want to be here. And so the parents are coming as well, and that's really beautiful. And then just lots of kids, you kind of reach that space where there's kind of enough energy in the room. It becomes easier to invite your friends and create more space and welcome and belonging there. And Ben has done such a good job of building just a beautiful community that way. As it relates to Ben, I know I mentioned the continuing education aspect. So Ben's about a year into some continuing education that we are participating and helping pay for. He's paying for some, and we're paying for some as well. A spiritual formation certificate through Renovare that he's participating in, and we're seeing the way in which that's shaping and forming him as a leader and in the ways that he's serving in his ministry. And we're continuing to look at ways that we can continue to invest in Ben as we kind of look to the future and forecast the future. Yeah. As you got to see during the summer with the summer preaching schedule, having him on the teaching team, and something we'll continue to do there as he's able, joining our sermon prep teams our sermon prep meeting a little bit more. So investing in those ways of kind of helping him develop in that area. And then just lots of growth as a leader, building teams, multiplying himself, not doing everything for the youth group. He's built a really amazing team of volunteers that's collaborative and freeing him up to do more of the creative and visionary work and got to see that happen in the camp context, but as it's continuing to happen even on a midweek sense to a team of volunteers that's really, really engaged and owning a lot in relation to our youth. And speaking as a parent of a youth, I'm just really grateful. I turned to Emily the other day and I was like, our daughter's going to youth group, and that's a little like shocking in and of itself, but I'm like, and our church has a youth group, which is amazing. As those are words I never thought that I would say, like having planted this church a long time ago, I just didn't think it was going to be possible. And so we're celebrating and being excited about the future for that. And Ben's been really thoughtful about the stuff that they're doing. If you're interested in keeping up with like what's going on with our youth group, even if you don't have a student, you can sign up for his newsletter. It doesn't come out. It's not going to spam you a lot, but it's a great way of just being aware of like what's going on, what series are they doing, what events are they doing, to be able to pray for our youth. So you can let Ben know, and he'll be happy to add you to that email list. So that's kind of youth. A couple of things in terms of home communities. 2 Sundays ago, Melanie hosted a lunch. I know that got announced, kind of a get to if you're interested in home communities, joining a home community, leading a home community, and she had a great group of people up there. It was a beautiful time of connecting people to each other, and it can be hard sometimes to just put an announcement up and say, does anybody want to be a home community leader? And then it's crickets. But you throw a lunch and you put people together around a table and they enjoy a meal, and then all of a sudden you're like, and then people realize like, we want to do this. So that's exactly what happened. A couple of new groups that came out of that lunch, as well as connecting people to existing groups. So our home communities continue to grow in that sense under the care of Melanie. Our apprenticeship groups kind of continuing to kind of roll out this fall, and you'll just see those things kind of happen throughout the ministry year. You heard about our Story of God group that Alan and Adam are going to be taking the charge on this year. And that event that's coming up next Sunday, the Revelation read-through, as well as an opportunity for new people to onboard for the year ahead. And they've got some great ways in which that group is really going to be improving in a lot of ways under their leadership, and ideas about how to take that group forward. Alyssa Starks, you'll hear this in the weeks to come, is going to be leading a book group on Eugene Peterson's book, A Long Obedience in the Same Direction, which is around the Psalms of Ascent. It's a 6-week study that she's going to be doing for a book group that way. And if you haven't met Alyssa, she's really great. And that was something she approached us about. I really want to do this. So kind of discipleship-oriented, kind of integrating style group there. And then Brad Harper's going to be leading a historical theology course in the winter that he's excited about. Brad's been out of the classroom now for a little while, and he's itching to be teaching again. And he's been talking about doing this for a while, and so it'll be kind of understanding theology through the lens of history and kind of understanding where we come from and where are we going and all of those things. Your dinner's upstairs. It's the burger. Unless your brother ate it. Let's see. Where was I? Theology group in the winter. Alan Hutchison is talking about a Bible study methods group in the spring. And so that will be a kind of a how to read your Bible. So both for folks that are new to reading their Bibles and also going maybe I was not handed the best Bible study methods as I only know how to do this devotionally versus how to approach this as literature and how to approach it in meaningful ways. And Alan's a professor of Bible and is going to be sharing his input that way, which is going to be awesome. So as well as a few more integration and renovating groups that we have on the docket and some discovering spaces too. So that are still just kind of taking shape and taking form. And so those are coming your way, some great places to connect. Pumpkin Lane, the fall calendar stuff, Chili Cook-Off, those are all great places to connect throughout the fall season and be together and share in the joy of getting to be together. Also want to just draw attention to our prayer and liturgy team. Chris really oversees a lot from the liturgy side of things with the help of Alyssa, and Alyssa really overseeing a lot of the aspects of, most of the aspects of prayer as it relates to our community. So being aware of prayer needs in our community, scheduling and doing a lot of writing for our prayers of the people teams, scheduling all of our intercessory prayer people that pray in the corners after the service, as well as a whole bunch of other ways, our prayer rooms and other things that are going on in ways that we're valuing prayer. So I know they're looking towards having a lunch to kind of bring that team together, to thank them, to bless them. It's been a while since they've got to do that. I also just mentioned this because that's an area that still has a lot of need. And I know Alyssa would give testimony to that. That's a lot from a scheduling standpoint, and it's a very specific kind of way of serving in our community, both through intercessory prayer and our prayers of the people team, and those are big places. And so if you have any interest in serving in those ways, people serve on the prayers of the people team both through writing and reading and doing both. So if you're like, I just would read the prayer, that would be awesome. We need readers. Or if you're like, I just want to write, we need writers. And if you want to do both, we need both. So would love that. Or if you're like, I just love caring for people and sitting in the back and praying with people after the service, just listening and caring. It's one of the most tangible ways of ministering within our community. And so there's not a lot that's required there other than just listening and journeying with people. So if you're interested in that, you can talk to Alyssa. Raise your hand, Alyssa. That's Alyssa. And then this is a little bit more of just an observation about, we're almost done here, an observation about this season that we're heading into as a church. Last fall was really heavy for our community. We experienced a lot of death. We experienced a lot of grief. And then as we experienced that in specific ways in families in our community, I think what it did was and we talked about it this way, but it just kind of dug up a lot of the undealt with places of grief in our community as well. And we're coming up on and are passing and are coming near a bunch of those anniversaries. And I bring that up, I think, because we're a tight-knit group of people. And so we feel those things, and we're going to feel those things in our body as they kind of resurface in the coming months. And I don't say that as like a foreboding sense to you or trying to be Debbie Downer in that sense. I think it's more like just noticing it in my own self and in our staff, and then also just in our community. Like we are still feeling the effects of last fall in many ways. And so I bring that up to your attention just as our core group of people who are really interested in what's going on in the life of our church, to hear from me more from a pastoral sense, to be praying this fall, really intently for our body, for the families that have experienced grief in that way, and then also just for our community as a whole, that we'd be meeting God, the presence of God. We'd experience the presence of God in those places where that resurfaces, and it'd be a place where we sense God's presence with us, and to be aware of those things. So. And then I think the last thing that I would mention, and has already been, that's good, Dr. Pepper. You're mocking me over here. You guys are going to fit on the deacon team real well, because all they do is mock me. They just mock me. It's in the job description. It's mock Adam. Is, I guess, a word that I've been using a lot already, and so, there's an element that I think should feel obvious, and that's just growth as a community. And I want you to know, while I don't necessarily have a whole lot of specifics to give you, like, here's how we're handling all of that, and here's how we're thinking about every aspect of growth, that it is very much on the mind of our leadership, and there are specific ways in which we're wrestling with some questions around growth. What does it mean for us at a staffing level? What does it mean for us in terms of how much space we can make here? All of the chairs that we can get in this room are in this room. This is all of our chairs, and we're at 305 chairs in this room currently. And there are some Sundays where that it feels like it's barely enough. Not every Sunday, but there are some Sundays where it feels like we're real close to, like, if people are wandering in, there's not a ton of space, So those things, I bring those up just to say we are aware of that, and we're trying to be really thoughtful and intentional. Churches can get real wonky around growth stuff of like, we're going to conquer the world, or we're going to, and make really non-thoughtful decisions about how to respond to that happening. There's a lot of beautiful aspects of that. But if we continue to grow numerically, there'll be some decisions that need to be made for our community that are really important. So to be praying about those things for us, I think to also say our leadership really wants to be open and aware of what you're thinking and feeling as it's related to growth. We've done a couple of things that way before. We know what it feels like to go to 2 services. And that's, for various reasons, we've gone back to 1, right? COVID sent us back to 1, and then back to 2, and then back to 1. And so we've done a lot of bouncing around. We know the weight of these decisions and all of those things, and so we're weighing it really carefully, trying to be really thoughtful about how to move forward. We talked about a sabbatical for like a year in advance of it happening, so we're not going to spring massive decisions on you, okay? But want you to know that it's on our mind, and we're thinking about those things, and it's just really encouraging. It's great. It's really awesome that that's happening in really very Union Chapel-y ways, very organically. It's not because we decided to invest, $10,000 in Facebook, marketing or advertising. So, which is a thing we could do, but we're not doing that. So, okay. That is all by way of kind of ministry update. Tim's going to be our Q&R MC. And staff and elders and deacons encourage you to jump in on answering. Just because I'm the one up here with the microphone doesn't mean I need to be the one answering questions. But any questions about anything tonight or anything that wasn't mentioned tonight, just questions you have about goings-on, our finances, our deacon and elder process, our ministry updates, anything else that is of interest to you. Alan.
On the giving side of things, not Shelter and Light, but the general giving, what's the balance of recurring gifts versus one time? Because at one point in the past, we had encouraged congregation to move to recurring, but I was just curious where that was at.
I don't have a number off the top of my head, and I don't think Amanda does either. We can get that number, but I think it's a good thing to have, to make note of having for our December family meeting, to be able to give a sense of that to our community. So yes, we did kind of make a call for that. And I think going back to this graph, this is just, going back to this graph, those are average, the black line is averages for 2021 to 2023, but I was even looking at some of the reports today that were just matching up 2023, and it was, 2023 was, I was looking at an old family meeting slide that I had made when I was making these ones, and seeing these just really, some months that were like $22,000 in giving that month, and then the next month was like $44,000. It was just kind of like not super consistent. And so I think for us to be in this space that feels, that number has to have changed pretty dramatically because of how consistent, how consistent those blue lines are. Look at that. It's really with anomaly months of more giving. But if you look at if you look at where those are bottoming out, they're all bottoming out in the same spot, right in that 35 range. We haven't really gone underneath that. So I would guess, but I don't have the hard facts on that. And that is a reminder to those recurring gifts. Absolutely, yes, very helpful. And then if you want information about how to avoid those credit card processing fees, we'd be happy to help you figure that out. Because a lot of people sometimes don't know that that's happening. It's a part of your charitable giving, period. Anywhere you're doing charitable giving, if it's not being done through ACH or through online bill pay, where it's essentially a check being sent, you're paying a processing fee on that. And if you want all of your money to go to it, to think about giving differently that way. Yeah, Natalie.
With the online giving, is there a way that I could pay my own processing fee? Mm-hmm. Like when I give to my nephews?
Yes, thank you. That is an option that we did make now. So when you go into your settings, or you go in to make a payment or set up a recurring payment, there's now a place that you can say, I would like to pay my own fees. And you can do that if you'd still like the convenience of, yes, absolutely, of paying digitally in that way, for sure. Yeah. Paul?
When people pay with credit cards, does that fee that gets taken out, does that still count towards their taxes, or is that just a loss altogether?
No, because it's not, their contribution stays the same, but what the church gets is less, right? So they still get to report the full amount of their contribution for tax purposes. If you're hitting that, the taxes have changed. The tax codes changed so much on charitable giving. You have to be over a pretty high percentage now to be writing those off regardless. But what was I going to say? Yeah, that number stays the same for you. It's not affected by that. It's just skimming from what the church gets. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But if you agree to pay, is that what you're asking? If you agree to pay the fee for it, I think that does get included still in the charitable giving. I was just wondering who was losing. It sounds like God's losing. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Tim.
So I don't think I quite tracked when you were talking about elders.
Yeah.
As you bring on new elders, are we expanding the elder team?
Yeah, so I think our elder team is likely going to grow this year in total number, but there will be some folks who we're preparing for them to be able to take their term break.
Is there a set number we're looking for?
There isn't. We've talked about that as a team and really feel like the number's bigger than what we have now. But we don't necessarily, it has less to do with this is how many we need to fill. In our bylaws, there is a minimum number, and I think that's 4 or 3. I can't remember what it is. I think there is something in our bylaws, but it's a small number. Might even be 2, 3. Okay. I could go find that answer for you. It is there somewhere. But yeah, right now we have 4 lay elders, 3 pastoral staff elders, 2 of which are ex officio. So there's 5 voting elders currently. And then 2 who are, gosh, sorry, my math really is bad. 2 more. 2, how many fingers? Yeah, Chris and Jenny are also a part of the elder team, but non-voting. So, yeah, we're kind of looking at that space of probably expanding at least by 1 this year. Having 1 more, having 5 lay elders after the kind of shifting and moving has happened. So.
And my next question is totally unrelated.
Mm-hmm.
What do you hear about the Main Street renovation? We thought that was going to be happening by now.
Yeah. We did too. Yeah, it's not happening yet, and I need to get an update unless anybody else has more updated information that are downtown stakeholders or anything like that. The last I heard is they were going to be starting in the summer at the bottom of the street. So we're not, they haven't even broke ground on that yet. We do have a block leader at the VDA, and it's as easy as me going over there and asking, but I haven't done it yet, of getting an update on where we're at in terms of timing. Certainly we're going to be in construction land with the stuff going on at Spanky's for, I think their permit for those spaces that they've blocked off is until December. So, our block's going to be down like 7 or 8 parking spots until December. So we'll feel that. And then there's construction further north on Main Street across from like where Amaro's table is, and that's because they're developing that whole block across from Amaro's. And there's a 7-story apartment complex, office building, and retail space that's going in there. We don't know yet. Yeah, there's been rumors, but I'm not going to repeat any of those rumors because they didn't sound great, and I don't want to scare anyone, and I don't know. Rumors are rumors, so I need to get to the bottom of that to figure out. Oh, good. That would be lovely. Yeah, not the rumor I heard. What's that? The casino's out. Casino would even be better than the rumor I heard. So, hopefully it's just a restaurant. That would be great. That'd be really lovely to have that be something nice there. So yeah, there's a couple ways that we need to be a little more plugged in with what's going on the block. Sorry, I don't have more info that way. It's coming our way. It's gonna happen, but who knows when? And when it does happen, we'll probably be in construction land for a while. It's not going to go quickly, like the city projects just don't go super fast. So. Anyone else? Other questions? Goings on, thoughts, feelings, sonnets, haikus? Yeah, Michael.
Is there a way to find out where the needs are in the church? Because some of these things I didn't know there were spaces open. Not that I'm necessarily the best person to fill them, but if I was, I wouldn't have known.
Yeah. We don't do a whole lot from a Sunday morning space in terms of putting stuff out in front of people, in terms of needs that exist. Sometimes that is it's actually not that efficient of a way of filling needs. Making announcements has never really borne a whole lot of fruit for us when we're like, hey, we need help with da-da-da-da. It's almost always through personal asks. It's almost always through more organic means. So unfortunately, that's kind of the way most of the needs go within our community. I realize that could maybe, one of the ways that backfires is that it can kind of create a weird kind of almost like there's some gatekeeping going on with filling those needs, and that's not at all where we'd like to be. So we probably need to be thinking about that a little bit more. These meetings definitely are one of the most consistent spaces. So we have talked about the deacon spaces quite a bit. We're still looking to fill these roles. Mentioning that at multiple junctures. Jenny?
I think the other thing that I would add would be, as you are serving in areas that you are interested in and feel called to serve in, you'll be hearing about those needs. So I know specifically with our hospitality team, that's been a conversation that's been ongoing within that team for a while of like, hey, you know, there's opportunity here. And yeah, I would say the same with children's ministry. I would say the same with, you know, any of our teams, the care team, them identifying people that are involved there, that are, it's kind of like we say, our elders are already eldering. At some level, our deacons, it's Clementine. Oh, baby. Okay. You know, our deacons, like, we kind of feel like they're deaconing too. So Tim wants to hold Clementine. That's the moral of the story.
That's good.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
That's good. Yeah, I think those are good reminders, though. And if you have ideas on, like, hey, maybe here's how you could communicate better about some of those things, I'd be open to hearing about it. I think our email is such a consistent place of communication for a community that maybe there is a space for kind of a recurring, like, needs highlight in that space. But I'm really open to ideas that way if you've got thoughts about how we could get better at that. Because, yeah, that could be a major roadblock to us actually getting some of those things filled, is that people just aren't aware. Yeah. The hospitality deacon thing, though, I think we asked quite a few. Only Jesse and Keely, no. Not to make anyone feel bad, but I think we did ask at least five people throughout the last 3 years. I'm not saying they're like, Jesse and Keely are the bottom of the barrel. They were our last option. It's not what I'm saying at all. We're so excited that they're here. But yeah, it has been one of those things that sometimes those things are hard to fill, or like people you're hoping, you know, might be able to do it for various reasons aren't able to commit to that. And it's a big commitment, so I'm not poo-hooing it at all. Good. Anyone else? Questions? Anybody want to share with the class?
He's just laughing at me for some reason.
Okay. Yeah, I think my reflections on coming back from sabbatical are just absolutely floored by the way that our community has just thrown down on loving and caring for each other. There was a deepening of ownership in our community in my absence in ways that were really beautiful, and in ways in which that we just want to continue to foster. But I know I do, and our staff team and our elders and deacons teams as well have just an immense amount of gratitude for our congregation, the way that everyone showed up in so many different ways. So thank you.
Did you notice that the biggest giving month of the year was your
when I was
first
gone.
full month gone?
Yep.
And then the closer it came to you coming back, it went down.
It's true.
Alyssa told me to.
Tim.
Oh, I was got off.
I told you.
Kiss up.
Brutal. Yeah, you could. Tim. Stop it. People don't know that you're joking. He's joking. Okay. What's that? It's on the graph. It's there. Facts don't lie.
Numbers don't
lie. Yep. No, it's good. It's true. Yeah, you were hoping we'd just talk about it a little bit more because we haven't had enough talking about sabbatical. Speaking of talking about sabbatical, we have a sabbatical policy too, and that's one of the things we're keeping an ear towards. We've created a sabbatical policy now, so that means us moving towards who's next. And so yeah, I'd expect to hear some about that in December as well, as we kind of look towards Chris and Jenny and others down the road, but kind of prioritizing their rest as well, which is really important. And I feel like there's good buy-in from the community of like, this is really meaningful to have a rhythm of this and to be thoughtful about continuing to do it. So, okay. All right. Let me give thanks and pray, and then and then we'll go. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Really appreciate you being involved in our community in this way and being a part of the conversation. If you have any questions, our books are open. And so if you want more detailed information about anything you've seen tonight, we can get you, Amanda or I could get you detailed reports on stuff. And then if you have other questions, feel free to hit up our elders that are present here tonight, Steve Corey and Amanda Reynolds, and then staff, me and Jenny and Ben. So encourage you to, and then you've met the deacons already. So chat with them too. Okay, let me give thanks. God, we're so grateful for this community, for the power that exists as your Spirit inhabits a people who love you and who love each other, and the testimony that can be to the world. And we realize we are obscure. We're just a tiny little church on Main Street in Vancouver, Washington, but we know that you have us here for a purpose, and to be faithful to what you've called us to. And so my heart is just deeply grateful for these people who get to share in that work together, that we get to share in this work together, for the work that you're doing. And we have hopes and dreams about your kingdom and the way that it's manifest in and through us here in this place. But we want to be faithful with what you've given us as well. And so keep us hungry, keep us faithful, keep us loving each other, forgiving each other, and being forgiven. And bless this time that we have here tonight as we go home to our various responsibilities. Continue to bind us together. In Jesus' name, amen. Thanks, y'all. Have a good night. Thanks, those of you who joined us online. Oh, I guess we didn't really check to see if online people had questions. You did? Okay. None of you had questions, but we're glad that you're here tonight. Thanks. Good night.